I think the best part of Mouse is like the connection we get and like the relationship and development of like characters between Art and Vladek. I think it's really powerful, like how like Vladek Art learns like his father's story, about his younger brother, about his older brother who died, about like how he met Anya and all like the horrible things he went through to try and survive and like get through, and like that like really like she lets him like grasp like how like devastating the Holocaust was just for like Jews and like his family in general.
I think my favorite part was the fact that the whole book was actually a graphic novel. It wasn't just a traditional book. Because with the images, it allows the art to do a lot of like creative stuff, especially with like when he put his own comic book in to tell the reader that his mom had killed herself. But then also like on page, I think it was.
Teachers, please excuse the interruption. Please dismiss the assigned seniors to their group guidance session. Follow the schedule emailed to you earlier. Thank you.
It also allows him to like do the pig masks and stuff like that and have the tail coming out, just more visual hints that you wouldn't be able to pick up when you're just reading a traditional book.
So I agree with what Jake said. Kind of going off of that, I said similarly the art style was my favorite part of the book. So I guess that goes along with what he's saying, that being a graphic novel. But I said it's like the art's really good. Like Art is a great artist, and not only that, but like it kind of tells its own story too. Like there's a lot of like very intricate details that you wouldn't normally get with like a normal book. So on page 138, I think Jake said this. There's the scene with Anya and her tail sticking out, and they're wearing like the pig masks, and they don't really, like he doesn't have to like write down that they're really like pretending to be Polish and that like she's noticeably still like Jewish, but like it portrays that in the artwork, which I thought was like really cool.
I think a good part, there was like several good parts of the book. I think on page 43, the beginning of chapter 3, I felt it was a pretty good part of the book because it was all about how Vladek started to get more involved into the Holocaust and into the war, and how he first like got caught into the part of the Holocaust, and how things ended up for him, and it lasted for quite a long while too. I think this whole part it was a good part of the book because it was always so tense, and it seemed like it always had a peak of the action. Like on every scene there was like a dramatic scene to it, and then on page 68 where like he finally gets back home, and it's like a relief knowing that he made it back home alive and that he meets his family back again, and it's just kind of like it's a nice feeling at this part of the book. And then another really cool part of the book I thought was really good was on page like 184 and 185 when they were just arriving to Auschwitz. It seemed like things were about to get really bad at this point now. Like everything from here was going to be like all based on his extreme survival and how he would have to survive the camp. And like we know about the camps and how bad we are from like other history books and movies and whatnot, but it's about the story of one man and how he, with all of his skills, survived Auschwitz, and how he kept himself like alive, and how he was to other people. I feel like there aren't many books or movies that are like that is just about one guy and his own survival. And what made this part so great is because things would sometimes get good for him and things would sometimes go bad for him. And I think every time that would happen, it was always like a really intriguing part of the book. That's why I think it was a really great part of the book too.
So one of my favorite things, or maybe not things, but series of events from this book, I guess, is the interactions between the woman that Vladek and Anya meet in the Polish black market, and Vladek and Anya as they're trying to hide. So, for example, on page 144, you see that they've kind of been taken into this Polish woman's home, and they've kind of befriended her son. And again, on page 148, you see, or 149, I think, you see that she continues to hide them in her cellar, even though her husband is there, and she knows that he would sell out Vladek and Anya if he knew they were there. I think that the risks that this Polish woman takes to keep them hidden are really kind of a bright spot in the kind of dismal nature of this book as a whole, and I really enjoyed kind of the time in the story that was spent with Vladek and Anya hiding with that woman.
I agree a lot with what Jake and Roland said about like the artwork being one of the best things about the novel. You can really tell that Art had like total creative control over this, and I think that's important in order to tell like a solid story with well thought out details, like Cooper said, with like kind of like pretending to be Polish sometimes, and like with the masks also. And then I also like how Art is able to make you care for the characters also, like towards the end of the book on page 271, when Vladek and his friend have like escaped the Nazis and they're hiding out in this like abandoned house and the Americans come. I just felt this like sense of relief for the characters, and it was like more of a brighter spot in this like kind of like dark natured book, pretty much.
Yeah, I have the part that was closest to Cooper's part that he said, like, first on page 124, you get to see Anya's grief with like the death of basically her entire family. She's like on the ground crying, and Vladek has to like kind of pull her out of it. But later on page 144, Anya, you can see on those like bottom three panels, Anya teaches this boy German and he gets good grades. And then that last panel, really heartwarming moment, I think, with that little inset text that Vladek adds. Because like after Rishu died, like Anya kind of isn't the same. I mean, it feels like at that point is when she kind of like loses it a little bit. I don't know, but this is one heartwarming spot that I think is my favorite.
Yeah, I like pages 9 and like all the chapters, like on page 11, 27, 43, 73, 97, 131, and continued, because I think it really shows, like what Tyler was saying yesterday, how it like shows like kind of like a preview of what the chapter's gonna be about, and they're very detailed for how like not much of a page it is. It's like a half a page. I really like that, and I also like on page 98 and 99 when like Artie and his wife are like in their bedroom, and like how detailed everything is in the bedroom, like the wallpaper and everything has like so much lines and small details that would take up so much time for the artist to do, and it was like a lot of panels. So yeah,
my favorite part of this book, well, one of them, was the little graphics that Art would give throughout the book. This was on page 112, and how he basically described what the coal bunker looked like on a little notebook, and I think a lot of these throughout the book are really like, they're good references of what he's actually talking about, like when it showed a timeline of the jobs that Vladek was doing in Auschwitz, and like the how to resole a shoe. I just thought all those little graphics were cool.
One more thing to add, what I really liked about the book, it never seemed to be a standalone part at like a boring scene. Like it was always skipping through like the boring stuff. It never seemed that there. What I'm trying to say is there was never a boring part in the book. Like every time on page 191 and 192, how it kind of jumps, like these 3 bottom panels on 191. He's talking to the capo about like the English lessons, and he's telling him to stand on the far left, and he just skips that day and just says the next morning, like in the morning on the next page. I think it's I think Art did a good job. How Art and his father did a good job of how they kind of like jump past the kind of slow parts, and just it was always making you on edge with the story. So I really like that.
I would say like say his art style, like how he used animals like mice, pigs, and cats. One of the reasons why is because normally when you draw like two people next to each other, you're kind of like, oh well, they seem like they're equal. Like there's no very obvious power balance between them. But with like a cat analysis, like you can easily tell the difference between like who's the predator and who's the prey. Like the mouse is prey and the cat is the predator. So it's kind of like this. But if you drew it in like human form, he would have had to draw like all the Nazis, I guess, like super buff dudes and like Jewish people, like very skinny dudes. So it fit very well.
I agree with Slava. It's I feel like it made it if art was to draw like human, it would be a little bit more racist because you'd have to draw Germans as kind of more evil looking, I guess, or something like that, and Jews like just differently. I think it was better how he used animals to kind of tell them both apart. It just seemed a little it seemed less racist of a thing.
Yeah, to add on to that, there's also like, what I think another another reason why he may wrote something like that is to show that like these two are equal. Like Jews and the Nazis are actually equal, and having to separate them just shows like who's who. And I also liked how in page 1 through 6 how when he showed off, when he showed his son roller skating and his friends leaving him, I really like how he had that at the start, really, and then his dad saying, have you walked in a room for a couple of months? I think that's really nice how he has all these little effects around the whole book.
I like the suspenseful parts, like when they were hiding out someplace. I liked how I could actually feel the suspense of trying not to get caught, you know.
I have another thing to add after this. Like how it's that, like how such a powerful story can just be told in black and white and simplicity. He didn't like use any color, but it could still tell the same story with the same emotions as a color picture would. I think that was really unique.
And when you use the simplistic art style, you can like kind of dedicate more of your time and resources towards like the writing and the story. I think that kind of shows because the writing and the story are both
Like
good.
drawing the facial expressions.
Yeah.
About 10 minutes.
Alright, so should we go on number 9? So what do you guys think the worst part of Mouse was?